The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
And welcome once again, ladies and germs and boys and squirrels. This is episode number, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, 40 of Wrestling Unwrapped. I am your host, the now, unfortunately, 26-year-old Patrick Ketza. And joining me, as always, the one who's always going to be older than me, Harry Broadhurst.
Okay, first of all, no one cares that you're 26, Jabroni.
It's my birthday. Everyone cares, damn it.
We're off to a fantastic start here. This is episode 40 of Wrestling Unwrapped here on the W2M Network. It is episode 52 overall, I think.
We don't talk about those other ones.
They're lost to time and space. Nobody knows what happened to them.
Yeah, we don't talk about those. Seriously,
I understand. I understand there was a bit of a powerhouse situation. That's all I remember.
Or like a power outage.
Oh, well played. Happy birthday, Mr. Ketza.
Thank you, Mr. Hutspake. Thank you, Mr. Broadhurst.
All right, so enough shenaniganing around. Tonight's episode of Wrestling Unwrapped is brought to you by the Madhouse Toy Chest. Stores.ebay.com/Madhouse Toy Chest. If you're a fan of anything wrestling, DVDs, action figures, VHS tapes, magazines, posters, and more, you can find it inside of the Madhouse Toy Chest. In addition, you can also find things such as DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, board games, figures for non-wrestling related things, and a host of other things by visiting stores.ebay.com/Madhouse Toy Chest. Mention you heard this advertisement here on Wrestling Unwrapped and receive a free gift with your purchase.
I wonder if he sells steel chairs.
He does, actually.
I'll be damned. God knows, I've got 4 of them now.
I think he even has a couple of pay-per-view steel chairs that he's trying to get rid of, if that's your bag.
Possibly. We'll see. But, as well, we are a presentation of the W2M Network. For more information, including all of our old episodes, almost all 49 of them, I think, are now up, and our written reviews. We are going to get back to it. It's been a little bit kooky week for both of us, actually. Be sure to check out W2MX.com. And this will be measuring you up, and then we, at some point this week, are going to get started on St. Valentine's Day Massacre. That's, once again, W2MX.com. So, tonight's show, since we haven't actually mentioned it yet, we've just plugged everything, we've decided...
Getting rid of the formalities.
Of course. For the first time, to go to England. First time we're going to England, right?
Yes. This is the first time we're going to England.
I was trying to think if we did a Bellatrix review, but I forgot we never did. So we decided to cover what is, quite frankly, one of the fastest-growing independent companies, I would dare say, in the world. And they had a big show last September the 25th, 2016, in front of, quite honestly, a largest crowd. Progress Wrestling needed a bigger room. Hell, to the point that they actually called this chapter 6, we're going to need a bigger room again. So, the 3.5 hours for technically 6 matches. Well, 7. Technically 8, but one of them we'll talk about. So this is a very long show. Shall we just get right to it?
One of them we'll talk about, and then we won't talk about it.
Yeah.
I'll leave it to your I'll leave it to your guys' imagination what that means.
Yeah. So, I'll put it this way. There's only 6 that are actually on the box. So, that should tell you something. Now, my question to you Very good. I didn't have a chance to ask ahead of time. Are we doing what we normally do, or?
Yeah, I got it right in front of me.
Oh, okay. Well, before we get started here, the results from Progress Wrestling Chapter 36, we're going to need a bigger room again.
Coming to you from the O2 Arena in Brixton, England. I'm not sure what...
No. Not the arena.
O2 Academy, excuse me. My mistake. Coming to you from the O2 Academy in Brixton, England. I'm sure there's a township similar to like the states we have here in the U.S. associated with Brixton as well. I don't know it. I apologize. They never actually said it by name. So I would assume London, but I don't know. Anyway.
I'll look.
Well, yeah, while I'm giving the results, he'll look it up. All right, this is Progress Wrestling, Chapter 36. We're going to need a bigger room. Again. In reference to the fact that they had moved buildings once before for a previous show when they moved into a bigger building for Chapter 12. This would be the only show they've run at the O2 Academy thus far, however. All right, let's get to the results. Progress crowns their first ever Atlas champion, affectionately known as the Big Guys Wrestling Division, when Rampage Brown pins Joe Coffey after a second pile driver at 13 minutes and 53 seconds. Six-woman tag team action sees the team of Ginny, Alex Windsor, and Dahlia Black defeat the team of Pollyanna, Laura DeMatteo, and Nixon Newell, WWE signee who was supposed to be in the Mae Young Classic, but unfortunately tore her ACL before said tournament could happen. When Ginny pins DeMatteo with a corner-hanging X-Factor at 11 minutes and 41 seconds. British Strong Style of the now WWE UK champion Pete Dunne and Trent Seven defeat the London Riots, James Davies and Rob Lynch, for the Progress Tag Team Shields. We'll explain that when we get to the match. When Dunne pins Lynch after a pump kick pile driver combination at 13 minutes and 51 seconds. Paul Robinson pins Chuck Mambo after a curb stomp at 6 minutes and 5 seconds. Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tommaso Ciampa in a best 2 out of 3 falls match at 27:34. We'll break down the individual falls as well as the match itself once we get to the match. The Origin, consisting of Dave Mastiff, El Ligaro, Nathan Cruz, and England's number 1, Zach Gibson, defeat the team of Damon Moser, the tag team of Friends Stand United FSU of Eddie Dennis and Mark Mandrews, and the extraordinary gentleman Jack Gallagher, when Gibson pins Gallagher with a corkscrew variation of the Brainbuster at 11 minutes and 7 seconds. There may or may not have been a car stereo involved as well. More on that in a bit. And your main event sees Mark Haskins win the Progress Championship title in a 3-wave dance, a triple threat match, 1 fall to a finish.
I was going to say, this was an elimination.
In a triple threat match, 1 fall to a finish, by tapping, I'm all kinds of screwed up now, shut up over there, by tapping the reigning champion Marty Scurll, the Villain, with a roll-through variation of the Sharpshooter. Also involved in the match was Tommy N., now known affectionately to NXT fans as Aleister Black. So where's
South
Brixton
London. South London.
Good to know. And now we do know. Yeah, I was right. I said I assumed London. I didn't know where in London, but I assumed London.
The more
I
you
think
know.
that might be. And now I think I know why Zach Gibson was so hated. Liverpool and Londonites do not get along.
No, obviously they don't. So,
it's a soccer thing.
As mentioned, there's quite a bit to get through here. It's a 3.5-hour show for 7 matches. But it's a big show. As a matter of fact, it's so big that this is Progress Wrestling Chapter 36. We're going to do the bigger ring again. And as I mentioned, it's off. It is the finals of the tournament to crown the first ever Atlas champion. It is Joe Coffey versus Rampage Brown. Now, we should mention the Atlas title continues, the Cruiserweight title rings off. And what I mean by that is, while the Cruiserweight Championship has a 205 weight limit, the Atlas Championship has a 205 weight in the ballpark. Must be above 205 pounds, which would explain why you have two absolutely massive men fighting for this championship. This is awesome. It is. Whew. They hit hard. They beat the hell out of each other for this match, but it was actually a good match. In order to crown, the first ever Atlas champions, and as mentioned, Rampage Brown ends up becoming the first winner of it. We should also mention real quick that the ring announcer is also one of the co-owners. So he's pretty much do it all. And that would be, I'm going to screw up his name.
Jim Smallwood.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of the man who does it all tonight. So it's going to be interesting. Presenting the brand new belt, which I have seen that belt in person with, I believe, the champion that would defeat and unseat Rampage Brown, that being Matt Riddle. Gorgeous belt. Absolutely gorgeous. Which, truth be told, all of Progress's belts are actually really nice. So,
well, I mean, technically one of their belts isn't a belt, but we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show.
Well, I can't say all of them. They have 3 now.
The tag titles are actual titles now?
No, they have a women's title. Now.
Oh, the Natural Progress Championship.
Ha. Anyway.
Apparently this is a rematch of a match that happened earlier, because the Atlas tournament was a round-robin situation where there were, I think, either 6 or 8 different people, and they all faced off against each other in a series of matches. And these 2 earlier in the tournament apparently had the only time limit draw of these. The round-robin matches were 15-minute time limits. Those 2 apparently went to the only time limit draw of the round-robin matches, so expectations for this match were pretty high going in. Is it just me, or did it look like... Okay, A, you're going to have to speak up. B, is it just me, or did it look like Rampage Brown got hurt early on in the match?
I totally agree with that. I thought he did too. Obviously, he was either A, not that bad, or B, he's one hell of a cover-up artist, because I did think that he got hurt, but he finished the whole match. By the end, he looked totally fine.
I stand by my statement. It looked like he got hurt early in the match, and I think it affected his performance because some of the exchanges that they had looked a little rough to me.
Oh, it's a hoss fight. What do you want? Brawl for all, this wasn't.
I'm not going to sit here and discredit the 2 guys because I do think it was a pretty strong match and a good opener, too, because it's 2 men that the crowd were solidly behind, one more so than the other. The crowd was clearly in Rampage Brown's favor here, although they did show more support for Coffey towards the end of the contest. A lot of British wrestling fans are going to know Joe Coffey is the man who, if I'm not mistaken, is, or at least at one point was, the WCPW heavyweight champion as well. That's another promotion we should really consider covering.
Well, people would also know Rampage Brown from WCPW. For a long time, he was Bumpy Flex.
All the more reason to cover WCPW.
Well, we can watch it on YouTube. Oh, wait.
Yes, we can. The shows are back up. Just got to know what to search for.
not the point. Anyway.
Six-woman tag?
Oh, yeah, that is next. So congrats to Rampage Brown for being the first champion, by the way.
13 minutes and 53 seconds.
Indeed.
Did you like, wait, before we move on, did you like the fact that they kicked out of each other's finishers in the opening match on the card? See, that bothered me.
Yes and no. Opening match, no. Finals for a championship and how much it means to be the first champion, yes.
So you're kind of split on it. Okay, that makes sense.
If the match was anywhere else, I'm absolutely okay with it. Because, like I said, it's the finals of the tournament. So, they know what to expect, especially after a time limit draw. Being that it's the opening match, but overall, I'm okay with it.
All right, carry on.
Our next contest is a 6-woman tag team match. It is Pollyanna, Laura DiMatteo, Dixon Newell versus Jenny, Alice Windsor, some of you may know her as Liberty, and Dahlia Black. I'm not even going to get to the match yet. Was it just me, or did Dahlia Black and TK Cooper, or whatever his name was, I really don't care at this point, were they screwing in the ring?
Well,
I ain't making chicken salad here. Yes or no?
I'm not touching this. I'm moving on to actually talking about the match.
They give new meaning to the power couple.
Sound chicka wow wow.
I need wrestling sometimes. Anyway. So it's a 6-woman tag. And in reality, this is more or less a preview, although, to my knowledge, no, none of them would actually win the championship. But we're starting to gauge towards more of a women's wrestling focus, and eventually it would lead to a Progress Women's Championship. This was sort of a tale of two halves, in the fact that everyone had the ability, but it absolutely depended on who paired up with who in determining how good this match was.
I can agree with that. I think the fact that, not to mention, I believe there were probably some jitters, too.
Maybe.
Well, you got to think, this is probably the biggest crowd these 6 women have ever been in front of. Let's not forget to mention here that they managed to put almost 2,500 people inside of attendance for this particular venue.
Yeah, so it's a huge crowd, especially for an independent wrestling show of any kind. Really, above that, the only one that I can even think of right now is Insane Championship Wrestling. Their last big show, which was Fear and Loathing 9, I think that was an actual arena, and I think they smashed 7,000 there. But other than that, I think this might be one of the bigger crowds ever. So,
the only people here in the States I can imagine out drawing it besides WWE/GFW, TNA, whatever you want to call it, maybe Ring of Honor. I think PWG has the ability to, but they don't have a big enough building.
Oh, absolutely not.
Because we've taken a trip out to the American Legion before to cover a show out there, and they can barely fit 400 people in there, if that.
And unfortunately, here in Chicago, there's a really bad, as a matter of fact, I was just having this conversation last night at a show. There's a really bad divide here in Chicago. Because basically the venues here are either 1,000 or below, or 9,000 and above. There's no middle ground here, and it sucks. So, but yeah, jitters can play a part in terms of the size of the crowd that you're performing in front of. But even still, I think out of the 6, I think the 2 that have ended up at Shimmer kind of shine the brightest here, that being Alex Windsor for the heel team and Nixon Newell, who I think kind of shines the brightest out of everybody. Although going into the match, Pollyanna was getting the biggest reaction, and I think that ended up changing by the end.
Pollyanna got the biggest reaction for the face team. I would say Ginny got a bigger reaction than Pollyanna did, though, even if it was a heel reaction.
And a lot of birds being flipped towards her.
Yeah, we're pretty sure the national bird of England is the middle finger.
Well, look at Alex Windsor's trainer, and you'll kind of understand.
She looks like Saraya, too. Is it just me, or does she look like a younger version of Saraya?
Saraya is already super young and can go for the next 40 years. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
You're more likely to see her than I am. I don't have to tread lightly here. As a matter of fact, she can feel encouraged to beat you up for my comments.
I hate you. I really do. Anyway, we do respect Plum here. Make no mistake about that.
But agree or disagree that she looks like kind of like a younger version of Saraya?
More than Paige?
Well, no, because Paige has the skin tone, but she looks like she could be Paige's sister.
Okay, yeah, I'll agree with that.
If not modern.
She actually does look like Plum.
If not, a little bit more tan.
Yeah. Although I will say now, like today now, because of the fact that Alex Windsor cut off a lot of her hair, she looks a little less like it. But in this show, yes, she does look like Saraya. So there's no denying that. But at the same time, that should also explain why Alex Windsor, to me, why the smoothest and most competent in the ring. Look who trained her.
Well, I don't know if I would say that Alex was the most competent in the ring. I think that honor goes to Nixon Newell for this match, and it's very easy to see very quickly why she became onto the WWE's radar and why they signed her with the hopes of putting her into the Mae Young Classic.
Unfortunately, hopes.
Well, yeah. Wish in one hand, poop in the other. See which one fills up first, unfortunately.
I know. Or the old JR line, if wishes for fishes, the world's be an ocean.
It is at this point that Wrestling Unwrapped would like to send out wishes for a speedy recovery to Nixon Newell.
As far as the match, the last...
Once they got all... Oh, you want to go first here?
Sure.
Okay.
The last 5 or so minutes of it, to me, are a complete cluster and a half. Where it's basically everyone hit one move, next person hit a move, next person hit a move, next person hit a move, and keep going and going and going and going.
See, I'm okay with that. Good. I'm okay with that in multi-person matches because I think what happens is you don't give away too much from the pending singles feuds.
But at the same time, it got to the point that even the commentators were asking, was legal? To which I even forgot, and I'm a stickler for that.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't even try to keep up. I was just waiting for the referee to start counting whatever pinfall happened. So, you mentioned the ending of this match being a cluster. I actually kind of want to talk about the beginning and then the second portion of the match as well. The very beginning of the match is... So, me and Patrick kind of talk back and forth while we're watching the shows. We don't reveal any real information about what we're going to say about the show, but we kind of talk back and forth. And the very first 2 text messages I sent to Patrick when I was watching this match were, the first one said that Nixon and Alex's segment was really good. Who were the next two in? Hold on, I gotta look up the names again real quick. Give me a second here. Dahlia and Laura's segment, not so much.
Yeah,
and then you sent back a response to something like, "Yeah, easy to tell which one of those four has been which 2 of those 4 have been the Shimmer."
Which, ironically, it was the exact 2 you named.
I will say that I think Dahlia's gotten better over the year since this show happened. And her character's very hateable, especially with the whole dry humping in the middle of the ring.
Or TK Cooper trying to eat her face off while she's making her entrance.
He tried to eat her face off while she was choking somebody in the ropes, too. I don't know if you caught that spot.
That one wasn't as bad as when she was walking in.
Maybe it's just been a long time since he's gotten him, and he figured he'd try to take advantage. I don't know.
Anyway.
No means no, Cooper.
Didn't look like she was saying no.
Anywho, thoughts on the finish?
Definitely continues, their, I'm trying that again. Definitely makes a point of, kind of makes a point of why Ginny's the most hated.
Yeah, I think it definitely sets Ginny up as the favorite to win the women's tournament as well, which I think I'm okay with here because she got off to a little bit of a sketchy start when she started the match, but as the match progressed and stuff, she really found her character, and her interactions with the crowd after the bell were really well done as well, I thought.
Yeah.
So I was perfectly okay with the way that this match played out, and as I said, after the rough start that it got off to, it turned into a pretty decent little match.
Not so little either. I'm starting to see why the show is 3.5 hours, because every match is given time.
I just did the math for that, by the way. 3 hours... Hold on. 3 hours, 38 minutes, 7 seconds.
Yep.
1 hour, 53 minutes, 42 seconds in the ring.
Wow.
So almost 2 hours of that 3.5-hour runtime is bell to bell.
It's pretty good.
Acceptable. Maybe
it's
a little
over
bit.
50%, so I'm happy.
Yeah, at the same time, there was a lot of superfluous stuff from entrances and stuff you probably could have cut out and saved yourself some time on this DVD as well.
We'll talk about that.
All right. Let's move on to the match that was supposed to be a match but isn't a match.
Yeah.
The Pasture, William Eber, is supposed to take on Sebastian. Well, about that. You want to take this or shall I?
A clothesline and it's over, unfortunately.
A clothesline from heaven.
Yes. I do like that touch, by the way.
I appreciate the gimmickry involved there. Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, continue.
Because, he's a caster, so clothesline from heaven. Caster ends up hitting it almost immediately, and that's it. And it turns out it actually injures badly.
It's during introductions, actually. It's not during the course of the match itself.
Yeah, so the match actually... My mistake, sorry. The match actually doesn't even happen, and kind of, I don't know that he's ever actually come back from it.
I can't say I've looked, but I can.
I think we're both looking right now.
It's one of those things that happens, unfortunately. Sometimes, as JR used to say, it ain't ballet, folks. So sometimes accidents like this happen in matches, and apparently the clothesline caught him a little high and legitimately knocked him out. And the Progress medical staff was right on scene in order to take care of him and make sure that he made it back to the back and was able to continue his night. And obviously they called off the match in the interest of the well-being of one of the competitors.
He would end up coming back because he's actually wrestled at several of the Progress shows since. His last one, though, being in February, I believe I saw. So it's one of those things where it's not on the DVD at all. And
I think I like that.
It's one of the things that's fair effect, and I know I'm going back to something that actually happened to me was I at a show as last week at Shimmer. I'm not going to give names or anything, but in the very first match of the entire day, one of the competitors ends up injured, and they had to call the match off, and she ended up having to be helped out and everything. And it's one of the things where all of a sudden the ring announcer just goes, you know what? That footage we'll never see the light of day. Let's redo the intro and just start again. And that's pretty much how this is, how it is, would be my guess, in the fact that this footage will never see the light of day. And yeah, I'm completely okay with that. Because it's not something you want to see. You don't want to see injuries at all.
I know I certainly don't. And the thing about it is yeah, you like to cheer for the good guys, cheer for the bad guys, whatever floats your boat. But as wrestling fans, the last thing we really should want to see is a competitor getting legitimately injured. And if you're one of those people that wishes actual injuries upon competitors, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
And we can edit that in post if you want to. You want to censor me, fine, go for it. You're an asshole.
Alrighty. So,
moving on, tag team titles.
Indeed. Our next contest is for the Progress Tag Team Championship Shields. Not belts, not titles, shields. It is the holders of the shield, the London Riots, taking on British Strong Style for the London Riots shield. Shield.
Okay. Let's see how much attention you were paying to me. Obviously, you know Pete Dunne and Trent Seven from the UKCT. What were their opponent's name again without looking it up?
Hang on. Rob Lynch and James Davies.
Okay, carry on.
I wanted to look it up.
I just wanted to I wanted to test you. That's all. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you think? I didn't watch it?
But their names aren't listed on the DVD, and they don't have the notoriety that Dunne and Seven have, having competed in the aforementioned UKCT.
Indeed, and now one of them actually holds the championship. So, this was a brawl. To the point the ref gave up.
Yeah, not much in the way of a wrestling match, more of a fight.
Yeah.
And I think given the two teams involved and given the style of all four men involved, probably for the best. Pete Dunne can wrestle. Trent Seven can wrestle. I haven't seen anything of Davies or Lynch to know one way or the other on them. But at the same time, when your name is the London Riots, odds are you're probably in a lot of fights.
And obviously it's been seen more and more is that, Seven and Dunne can go however you want them to go. They can brawl, they can, have a high-flying match, or Pete Dunne can go out and have one of the best matches of the year that's almost completely ground beast. So, they can pretty much fend off whatever you throw at them, as they end up proving, because they end up picking up the victory here. and becoming the new tag team champions. I don't know that I was that big of a fan of this match, though, because it was mostly just a brawl. And I don't mind that, but to me it was so different from everything else that I still went into this thinking, oh, done in 7, this should be, a great wrestling match like everything else pretty much has been. But this was, different, and to me it almost fell out of place, despite the fact that you have, 2 very well-known wrestlers in British Strong Style. No thoughts?
Well,
Nothing?
I think that might have been on purpose, though. I think that might have been done to set this match aside from the matches we had seen previous. Because the opening contest that we had for this particular show, the the Rampage and
Coffey.
Joe Coffey match. No, I'm having an issue. I just had a drink of Sprite right before you asked me the question, and it got caught as I was trying to speak. Sorry. The Rampage and Coffey match that started off the show was very in the ring based, very ground based. They stayed inside of the mat. Neither of them really went to the ropes, and if they did, it was only something minor. Actually, I don't think either of them performed a top rope move in this match, except for maybe there was a superplex, I think, if memory serves.
I believe so.
The women's match didn't really go out of the ring either, so it makes sense to me that they would make this match kind of stand apart by having it be the first match on the entire show to go all around the building, in my opinion. I was okay with the fact that this match went all around the building. That being said, I do think that as somebody who watched the UKCP and, like you said, saw Trent Seven and Pete Dunne and what they were capable of inside of there, I did expect more of a wrestling match from them rather than a brawl, but I wasn't disappointed by the way the brawl turned out.
Yeah, it's not that I'm disappointed how it turned out. It's just it felt weird to me because of it seemed so different from everything else. It's the match itself. It's a very good match, just like every match on this show. It's just to me it felt like an outlier compared to everything else, even to Coffey and Rampage match. But obviously, it's one of those things to each their own.
And with that, we go to intermission.
Indeed.
And intermission is over. We come back with Tim Smallwood in the ring. And Smallwood is talking about the fact that they still have 3 more big matches to come because obviously the William, Ever, and Sebastian match was canceled due to medical reasons. So instead of a 7-match card, they have 6 matches. And that's when longtime Progress veteran Paul Robinson makes his return to Progress Wrestling and more or less says he's not leaving the ring until he gets an opponent. He gets an opponent. That opponent's name is Chuck Mambo. Mambo?
Is this his 5th match?
Huh?
Is this his 5th match in Progress? Mambo's number 5.
You need a little bit of Monica in your life anyway. Trying that Lou Vega crap with me. No. Not going to work.
Yeah, it did.
No
It
sell.
worked.
Moving on. No, it didn't. No sell. Moving on. All right. Shall we continue?
Okay. This was a squash match. It was. This was
More or less.
Yeah. It was a long squash match, but it was a squash match. More or less to bring Paul Robinson back and kind of set his standard for what was to come. Mambo got some offense in, but I think the biggest thing that he got was all of the beach balls being thrown around.
You want to know what the biggest thing he got was? An ass whooping. That's what he got.
Yeah.
Because some of those strikes and that finish especially looked vicious. Like that double stomp, double knee drop to the back looked awful. Like it had to suck.
Guess Paul Robinson is British strong style too.
Clearly.
Yeah, this one was not pretty.
Not to mention, I wasn't entertained.
I don't blame you.
And I
really wasn't either.
Are we not entertained? No, we're not.
It was a 6:08. It was a 6-minute, one-sided match. You know, that was essentially just meant to extend what was already a very long show. By the way, I should mention, at this point, by the time this match ended, this match hit the hour-and-a-half mark on the DVD. Hour and a half. There's 3 matches
1:35:12.
There's 2 hours left, and there's only 3 matches. Starting to sound like a WWE show.
Wait, real quick, trivia for you. Would you like to guess which one of these two was actually booked on the next Progress show?
I'm going to guess Chuck Mambo.
You would be correct. Paul Robinson does not even appear on the next Progress show. Thanks for wasting my time. Next.
Let me guess. Does Chuck Mambo get his ass kicked again?
Well, he loses to somebody named Bubblegum, so I don't know.
Never mind. Our next contest. 2 out of 3 falls with 2 of the best in the world. Zack Sabre Jr. and Tommaso Ciampa. In what is Tommaso Ciampa's final independent wrestling match? This should tell you how it's going to go. But this was their final of 3 matches. Their first time facing off was in the Super Strong Style 16 tournament the previous year, where I believe ZSJ picked up that win. Then they would face later on, and Ciampa would pick up the win in their second match, and this would be the culmination of their feud.
Well, if you watch the video package that was spectacularly put together before the match, I think Zack Sabre Jr. may have knocked Tommaso Ciampa out of the 2016 Battle of Los Angeles as well.
We're not counting that.
They are. They mention it. It's either the 2015 or the 2016 Battle of Los Angeles.
Well, given the timing, it could be 2016.
It would have been, the 2016 would have been earlier that year, but neither here nor there. Carry on.
Yeah. So, these two would battle it out for almost a half hour. And technically, they only had 2 falls, even though Zack Sabre Jr. picks up the win 2-1.
Yes.
Because
wait a minute, how does that happen?
I was getting there. You didn't have to ask. I was going to explain.
I was trying to segue. Fine, be that way. Go ahead.
So in the final fall, so at one point, Zack Sabre Jr. actually rolls up to Tommaso Ciampa for a pin. However, Ciampa is able to kind of swing his hips a little bit and ends up bringing down Zack Sabre Jr.'s shoulders as well. But neither man actually kick out, thereby it's a double fall. And the referee makes the determination, much to the, I would actually say, disappointment of the crowd, that he's going to count both. So the match is officially tied at 1, and the next fall wins. That crowd did not seem that happy with that decision, even though it made the most sense. To me, I thought that was the best decision you could have made.
Yeah, I get the reasoning behind if you're going to book them in a 2 out of 3 falls match. why not actually just let them work all 3 falls? But at the same time, with this show running as long as it is already, it kind of makes sense to cut time where you can. And one of the ways to do that is by having a double fall for the first decision.
Yeah, and I mean, over the course of the entire match, these two would put on an absolute clinic. You know, that's why I said 2 of the best in the world. Zack Sabre Jr. is a technical wizard, and Tommaso Ciampa is much like with Dunn and Trent Seven, can hold his own in any kind of match you want to throw him. And, you know, it sucks that he's out injured now, because he had been one of them that was also completely tearing it up in NXT, as he did almost anywhere that you would see him. I'm trying to think. This would have been, so this was September 25th. This would have been 3.5 weeks after he had his last match in AAW, where he and Penta El Cerro Miedo, such a stupid name, had an incredible match. Shorter, but they had an incredible match as well. So Tommaso Ciampa is tearing it up anywhere he can, anywhere he wants to, essentially, except for Ring of Honor, because he pretty much told them to F off when they told him to F off. Because they didn't see anything in him. Oops.
Yeah, I feel like there was a certain guy that used to run Ring of Honor that didn't see anything in that Kevin Steen fella either. Wonder whatever happened to him.
He now sits at home eating his bowl of combos and just whines about everything. Double cheese, double pickle. Don't finish that.
I won't. By far and away the best wrestling match on the show.
Oh, no doubt about that. But
in fairness, it really doesn't have a whole lot of competition in that regard, because most of the other matches are either brawls or they're weapons based.
The main event wasn't weapons based.
There were like 9,000 umbrellas used in that match. Yes, it was.
Those aren't weapons.
And there was a table spot.
That's one weapon.
The umbrellas count. Get off of Marty's jock. Moving on. No, I was very entertained by this match.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it had at times complete flurries. Sorry.
I wasn't done.
Sorry.
And at times had complete flurries, and then there were other times where it was very slowed down. No, seriously though, I like the fact that they told the story that Ciampa could realize that he couldn't hang with Zack Sabre Jr. if they stayed on the mat, so he tried to take it to more of a strike-based match. Whereas Sabre wasn't afraid of going strike for strike with Ciampa, because Sabre has the moves like the PK and the knee strike and everything that he's been doing too. So he feels that he could carry a strike-for-strike contest, whereas I think Ciampa was more worried about getting caught one of the submissions. And boy, did he get caught in a submission to end this contest.
Yeah, this is one of the things that you brought up, that it was disgusting. Your body is not meant to bend that way.
And then he started kicking him in the back of the head as well. It's like a bridging arm bar, and then it started out as an octopus. For fans who know what an abdominal stretch is, the octopus is when you stretch your leg over the back of their neck as well. He pulled him back and held the arm in place while he took the octopus down to the canvas, so he still had his neck trapped with his other leg, and then Sabre started using his free leg to stomp Ciampa in the back of the head.
What the hell?
Ow! And just as importantly, why?
Hasn't Ciampa had an issue with concussions in the past too?
I seem to recall that being a thing before, about him missing time in Ring of Honor because of a concussion. It looked vicious. I hoped it didn't hurt nearly as much as it looked like it did. Because I think I sent you a message while we were watching the show. I think I sent you a message that says, I'm curious to ask an opponent of Zack Sabre this question there. Does his stuff hurt as much as it looks like it does, or is he actually really soft in the ring?
I don't know if any of that was soft.
Oh, no. Those look like shoot kicks to the back of the head, too.
That was not SAWFT soft.
It may have been SLOPPY sloppy, though.
I don't know that I'd go that far. Snug.
All right, that's fair. That's probably a better word.
So, yes, Zack Sabre Jr. ends up proving to be the quote-unquote better man and picks up the overall rivalry in progress to victory 3-2, 2-1 in this contest. Alrighty. It is the penultimate match times. That's how they called it, so that's how I'm called. Sub-main event. It is an 8-man tag. It is the Origin teaming together, and they have the stipulation where if the Origin loses, they must disband. The Origin is the team of Dave Mastiff, El Ligero, Nathan Cruz, and Zach Gibson. Going to have to talk about him in a minute. Facing off against Damon Moser, the extraordinary gentleman Jack Gallagher. Yes, that Jack Gallagher. And SSU, Friends Stand Together, F Stuff Up, Full Sail University, take your pick. That
okay,
one
first of all,
Eddie Dennis and Mark Andrews, a.k.a. Andrews.
Friends Stand United.
I said together, didn't I?
You did.
You know what I meant.
Get the acronym correct. I actually looked it up for a reason, much the same way I looked up FIST when I first heard about it and found out that it stood for Friends in Similar Types.
Similar Types. That's okay. I'm trying to find out the name of an acronym. Like, as of 5:54, 40. Can't find it.
Did not hear a word you just said. Your phone faded out.
Don't worry about it.
Speak up. Anyway, so apparently the Origin has more or less been running roughshod over the entirety of Progress Wrestling for the better part of the last 14 months, if you believe the conversation that the announcers were having there. I haven't seen any of those shows. I can't speak to the fact that they were or weren't running over.
So they were Triple H'ing it.
Not touching that one.
Not wrong.
Well, you know what they say, evolution was a mystery.
No, it wasn't. They buried everybody. Anyway. It takes a while just for the match to get started. Because the Origin decided that they had to cut a promo. And then Gibson couldn't talk. Why? Jimmy Rage ain't got crap on Gibson.
Literally.
In terms of getting, literally. Because Gibson couldn't talk, because anytime he tried to, he would just get pelted for almost 3 straight minutes with toilet paper. More toilet paper than I have ever seen thrown in a ring. And like I said, I've seen Jimmy Rave matches. Just, good Lord. Whole rows. I couldn't believe it.
Do these people not know how expensive toilet paper can be sometimes? I just hope they were throwing the generic dollar store crap and not the good stuff.
Excuse me. Pound store. We are in England. Get it right.
Whatever. You know what I meant.
Hey, at least I didn't say euro.
Well, yeah, because they separated from the European Union now.
Hashtag Brexit. What?
Anyway, I'm actually kind of familiar with some of the members of the Origin. I've seen a couple of Fight Club Pro shows over the course of my CZW fandom. They did a series of shows with Fight Club Pro, and one of the people who was a real big, and I mean that quite literally in this particular instance, name coming out of those Fight Club Pro shows was Dave Mastiff. That is a big boy, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. I think he outweighed everybody combined in this match.
El Ligaro is best known for his work with WCPW, one would assume. And I can't say I know anything about Nathan Cruz, although apparently he was the first ever Progress World Champion. And I actually went back on Cage Match and looked into this, and that is correct. He won a 4-way on the very first Progress Wrestling show to become the first World Champion in Progress Wrestling. The man that I want to talk about from the Origin that stood out to me, though, was the aforementioned Zach Gibson. A, he's from Liverpool, so automatically like him, hashtag never walk alone. B, man, if you're drawing that kind of heat, you must be doing something right.
Oh, that's all?
Like, it didn't seem like X-Pac heat to me. It seemed like genuine heel heat to me. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Oh, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. He got the fans to throw toilet paper at him. He does not have Xbox. I'll put it that way.
If the fans are willing to spend money to get projectile objects with which to fling at you, you're doing something right.
Whether heel or face, whether it be toilet paper or streamers. And God knows, we've seen enough streamers on this show.
Oh, we'd see even more in the very next contest.
Oh, absolutely. But in terms of this contest, this was kind of what you would expect.
I like the fact that it broke down into the brawl at the start of the match, so that way they could give the ring crew time to clean out the ring. Because the canvas was more or less saturated in toilet paper by the time they started brawling.
Yeah. But the problem with that being is they were still tripping through the toilet paper on the floor.
Well, yeah, when there was as much of it thrown as there was, you can only do so much.
Seriously, folks, there had to be at least 100 rolls today.
I think 100 is being generous. I think it's probably closer to the number of about 250.
Maybe Progress supplied them for everyone in the front 3 rows or something.
You know what? That would not surprise me, because I have known that Ring of Honor used to do that for fans for Jimmy Rave.
That is true. And I'm pretty sure Progress also supplied the Psycho Killer signs for the previous matchup.
That would make sense as well.
So, it's possible. But my God, there was a lot of it. Anyway, I mean, pretty much everybody gets, a chance to really, I don't want to say shine, but shine in the contest.
No, we've covered that before.
Yeah. So I liked it. I thought it was a really good match. Pretty sure everybody ended up hitting their finishers, because that's what happens when you have huge multi-person matches like this. Unfortunately, the Origin actually wins, which, boo. But not every good guy can win on every match in the show.
So. It's funny that you say that. I was actually looking through this show up to this point, and I do believe the only babyface that went over up to this point had been Rampage and Zack Sabre Jr.
Yep.
So once the Origin went over in this match, it kind of tipped the hand to me as far as the main event goes, but it didn't tip it the way that I thought it would, and we'll talk about that once we discuss the title match next.
It was basically, you knew who was losing. It was, who was he losing to?
Yes, he was definitely dropping the title. The question is who was leaving with it exactly.
So, So the Origin ends up living to fight another day. And I believe this would end up actually being Gentleman Jack's farewell.
Based on the reaction he got after the match, plus that very long hug with Jim Smallwood at ringside, I would imagine that would be an accurate assessment.
I'm trying to find it. Man, WWE works a lot of matches.
Cruiserweight Classic was before this.
I know. Yes, this was his last independent match. His very last independent match of any kind. Because he also worked Smash Wrestling before this. Another company we have to cover.
Have to or want to?
Both.
Oh, okay. Touche.
So this would also be Gentleman Jack Gallagher's farewell before he would also go, I think, straight to 205 Live. So
he would appear on a couple of episodes of NXT to challenge for the UKCT as well, but no, it's more or less it's straight to 205 Live. I don't think he ever appeared on NXT television as a singles.
Yeah. So. But either way, boo. Bad guys win. Boo. So, it is main event.
Can we talk about the finish real quick? Since we haven't really covered it, can we talk about the finish? I want to get your thoughts on it. What did you think of both Gibson's finisher as well as the fact that they used a freaking car stereo of all things?
Different.
Fair.
Anytime you can pull something different out of a hat at a wrestling show in 2016, but even 2017, okay. Gibson's finish, ow.
That seems legit.
Ow.
It looked like he set him up for like Orange Crush and then turned it into a brainbuster instead. Because he had him up in like Conan's 187 DDT where he has them elevated with the legs around the waist and then powered him up and into the corkscrew brainbuster.
Ow. So, yeah, but that's essentially what it is. It was almost like a double underhook corkscrew brainbuster.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if we come back and watch a Progress show from 2017, maybe one of the newer shows. There was talk going around that we might try to get Progress Chapter 50 for our 50th review.
We'll see. That won't be until November.
I would say that I wouldn't be surprised to see Zach Gibson a lot higher on the Progress card at that point if we do get to that point, and we do get around to covering.
He wants to be Europe's number one and then the world's number one. He won't be, but okay.
We'll see what happens.
Hashtag menu. Moving on. Our next contest is our final contest. It is a triple threat match, one fall to a finish for the Progress Wrestling World Championship. It is Mark Haskins versus Tommy Effin End versus the Progress World Champion, the Villain Marty Scurll. With strippers.
Yes. The text that I sent Patrick. Wait, Scurll got strippers? Okay, they don't actually strip. I mean, they take off their overcoats. They don't. Wait, what?
They take off 50% of their clothing, and then they take off 80% of Marty's clothing.
You now. Anyways, Anyways, back to what we were saying as far as this particular match goes. What was I saying as far as this goes?
Were you talking about Marty's front-face chicken salad wing?
I hate you.
started it.
But, But anyways, yeah, all three of them actually got big entrances, though. Tommy N had the face paint entrance. I want to give credit where credit. Well, I mean, by independent wrestling standards, I want to first of all give credit to the media department here. Whoever did that video that aired before this match, thumbs up. Like, fantastically done. Got me really excited to see this match.
I mean, no doubt. I think you were the one who said that it looked like something that WWE would do. I don't know that I would go that far, but it was a phenomenally done video. It really got the point across of what they were doing and why they were doing it. Because they all wanted to be the champion. They all wanted to be the top guy. Haskins had his reasons of he didn't want to be seen as a failure for his wife and his kids. And had, his own reasons. And Scurll, I mean, he had his own reasons, but he already had the belt. So he just wanted to prove that he was the man. Because he already was. So it was essentially keeping the throne. And, okay, so we were joking about it earlier, but there were a lot of umbrellas.
Fact.
A lot of umbrellas. Like 9, 10 overall, unless Marty pulled out the ones that the girls in his entrance used.
Yeah, no, the announcers actually raised that point, that those are the same ones that the girls used for his entrance.
It's still 5. And I think there was actually 6. So he did have 4. But before we even get there, this was... I don't know that I would actually say that, well, in terms of overall matches, in terms of story, in terms of in-ring, this match had it all. You had all 3 guys fighting for what they believed in, and everyone wanting to have the belt going out of the biggest show in Progress history. And this was the biggest show. As we said, almost 2,500 people are in there. I thought this was a very, very good match. I thought everybody, was featured great. The one thing I didn't like was that it felt like Haskins was dead. After he goes to the table, he's dead.
Yeah, he doesn't get back involved again until the interference by a returning favorite to the Progress Wrestling fans.
I was half expecting the Progress Wrestling fans to start chanting, "Mark is sleeping."
That's a Roman Royal Rumble joke, and you should feel ashamed of yourself.
It wasn't a joke. I was actually seriously waiting for them to start chanting it. Because he was out for... Okay, this match goes a half hour. This was the longest match of the show, and it goes about 2 minutes longer than the 2 out of 3 falls match. This table spot had to have been 15, 16 minutes in. Haskins doesn't come back until about 28 minutes in. So he's dead on the floor. It was a table. It wasn't a chainsaw.
Let's go to Ollie Williams for our Black Hugh Mark Haskins report. Ollie? He did. Thanks, Ollie.
That was a Family Guy reference. You should do that.
Nope. I do not.
Then I don't feel bad for my Roman Rumble joke. Anyway, so after Haskins goes through the table, this becomes the Tommy End and Marty Scurll show. Now, I wonder...
I sorry to interrupt here, but I think I have to disagree with that. I think this becomes more of the Marty Scurll show because it's more or less Scurll dominating the entire portion that Haskins is laid out at ringside for.
Well, not originally. that is until he pretty much hits Tommy End with everything. But there was some back and forth between the two of them first. And then Marty ends up taking the advantage by basically taking a baseball swing with an umbrella to Tommy End. And
to
then,
his jaw.
Yeah. And then Tommy's like the Goonies, never say die, because good Lord. Marty hits 3 power-drivers? I believe.
2.
No, 3.
Yeah, no, 3, you're right. 2 Cradle Gotch style, and then 1, no, Tommy counters out of the third Cradle driver.
I really don't think so. Because it was at that point that Marty was also starting to beat up all of the referees, and Marty Scurll essentially snaps because he can't put Tommy End away. So he hits a pile driver, gets a 2 count, takes out a ref. Hits the pile driver, gets a 2 count, takes out the ref. Hits another pile driver, takes a 2 count, and completely snaps on the last referee. And just beats the high holy hell out of him, at which point security also comes out, and Marty Scurll snaps on them too, because he can't put Tommy End away. But I think it was 2 Cradle Tombstones, and then the Gotch style pile driver.
It just all kind of bled together for me because, honestly, the kickouts aren't what you remember. What you remember is Scurll snapping on all of the referees and all of the ringside crew, and then the Progress Wrestling return of Jimmy Havoc.
To, without a shadow of a doubt, the undisputed biggest pop of the night.
No arguments here. 100% agreed.
Because holy crap, the O2 Academy explodes when Jimmy's music hits. Because at that point, it had been, I believe, let's see if I can get this right, almost a year.
Yeah, I believe it had been a year since he had been in Progress because he was wrestling on the show in Australia, I think the announcers pointed out, when he blew out his knee in what was thought to be a career-ending injury.
And obviously it wasn't. Barely. So, unfortunately, I can't find the info on him.
Hold on.
So,
I'll hit Cage match. You go ahead.
Don't go through this show's page because he doesn't appear on it. So, Havoc ends up taking out... wait, sorry, my eyes are out of me all the time. Havoc ends up taking out Marty for at least the time being, and we're essentially back to square one now. And we're about 28 minutes into this match. Haskins finally comes back and takes out Tommy End, to which Marty then tries to take out Haskins, but Haskins is able to roll through into possibly the most vicious-looking sharpshooter I've ever seen in my life. Bret Hart, eat your heart out. Because Haskins just rips back on it. You know, Rock sharpshooter and, well, Olderstein sharpshooter this wasn't. Because Haskins just rips on it. And because he's able to do that, though, he ends up getting Marty to tap out. So in the second biggest pop of the night, Mark Haskins finally wins the big one and becomes the Progress Wrestling champion. To obviously, you'd have to take a very good, feel-good moment for the show, and a really happy ending, which, as we mentioned, may have been a little telegraphed because of the fact that almost every other previous match, the bad guy had won aside from 2. So, maybe a little telegraphed, but doesn't make it any less special. So, Mark Haskins walks out of the biggest show in Fire's history with the belt.
Jimmy Havoc's knee injury occurs at MCW's At Our Best 2016, February 13th.
So we're talking 7 months gone.
Yes. He would not wrestle for Progress again until, I believe, November of 2016.
That makes sense.
Because I'm seeing like one match listed for him in September, one match. Oh no, he would wrestle in October. Excuse me. He would wrestle at Chapter 38 when men throw men at men. He would be in a triple threat for the Progress Championship, taking on Marty Scurll and Mark Haskins. Ironically enough.
Well, there you go.
Now I feel like we need to get Chapter 37 and continue the Progress story.
If nothing else, for the name.
Oh, no, this was 38 when men throw men at men.
I know, but just for the name.
I wonder what 37's name is. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'm about to look this up.
Uh-huh. While you do that...
A Sudden Sense of Liberty.
Oh, yeah, it's shown at the very end of the DVD. I forgot. I should have known that.
I kind of tuned out at the end of the DVD once the match ended because we were starting to get ready to do the show. I literally finished this DVD about an hour before we started the show.
Yep. So unprofessional.
You watched it today, too.
I finished an hour and 15. And did the preview. So hot. Anyway. So, that is the end of our first ever Progress review. Any final thoughts before we go into the big finish?
No, I think we've said all that we really need to say as far as the matches go. I think it's time to get into what makes the show stand out to us on a more personal level with our big finish.
I do want to ask you one question real quick.
Am I ready? Yes. Yes, I am.
No, not that. And the actual question about the show.
Listening.
How do you feel about wrestling shows being held at auditoriums?
I think it's a cool-looking visual, especially seeing fans seated back as far back as they were. It reminds me of the time that Shikara ran a venue similar in New York City, and they had like rows and rows of fans sitting in attendance watching the show. I always thought it was a cool visual.
See, I've gone to shows like this, and I'm not as big of a fan. Only because once you get back about 4 rows, you're not going to see a damn thing.
Well, that's
because
why
the
they charge
lower than you are.
Well, that's why they charge a premium for those first row seats.
Yeah. Like, I don't like... I prefer venues where it's centered. Or at least more centered than it is here. I don't know that I'm a huge fan of, 3 rows around, 3 sides of the ring, and then that 4th row has like 18 rows. And that's just how it is. That's just my thing. Yeah.
I'm going to agree to disagree here because if you really want the good seats for this kind of a venue, then you're going to pounce and get those good seats early. This is an opportunity, not to mention they had the video wall in the background so that all the fans in attendance could see what was going on the video wall as well.
True.
Because let's not forget, they had a Titantron kind of thing. I mean, it was a much smaller version, obviously, but they had like a Titantron kind of thing that was airing entrance videos for the wrestlers, and as I understand it from somebody who was there, they actually had the camera feeds put through to the Titantron as well.
I don't go to a wrestling show to watch it on TV. That's the thing.
Okay, and that's all well and good, but if you're going to a venue of this size, you kind of have to know what you're getting yourself into.
True. Just something I thought I'd ask.
Let's hit the big finish, Patrick.
Indeed. Best and worst match in our cash and our trash for the show. Why don't we start with the match this time? Harry, what is your worst match of the show?
Paul Robinson and whatever that Chuck Mambo spoof.
That's not even fair. It's an impromptu match.
Okay, am I actually picking a legitimate answer to this?
Whatever you want.
Well, of the other 6 matches, I'd go with the Chicks, and I don't feel right giving it to them because I think that match picked up significantly at the end. This match right here was more or less a one-sided affair in order to reestablish Paul Robinson, and then, as I pointed out, I looked up the results for Progress Chapter 37. Robinson wasn't even on the show, so what purpose did it serve? How about you, Patrick? What's your worst match on the evening?
Tag titles.
Really? Wow.
Oh, okay. It's really kind of. I think I'm trying to think of how I'm going to phrase this, but I guess I just haven't come straight out with it. Is that in comparison to everything else, if you're going to go like pound for pound, the women's match's bar would be set lower than a lot of other things, and it probably met and more than likely actually exceeded it because I thought it was a very, very good match. The tag title match, for me at least, the bar was fairly high because of who was in it, even though one side of the match was an unknown factor to me. And I didn't watch this expecting an American-style match. Because to me, that's essentially what American wrestling has become. It's brawl, brawl, brawl. It's a spot. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. I preferred to see something that was more wrestling, ground-based. So for me, it actually didn't meet my expectations, despite how high or low they may have been. So for me, despite the fact that I love Pete Dunne, I love Trent Seven, but for me it was the tag title match. What's your best match?
I think this one we may end up agreeing on. I'm going to go with Zack Sabre Jr. and Tommaso Ciampa. These two beat the crap out of each other for the better part of about 28 minutes, and at no point, in my opinion, did the action slow down to anything resembling a rest period for these guys. Even the submission holds that Sabre uses and the knee strikes and everything that Ciampa uses looks brutal. This right here is strong-style wrestling done correctly. I'm going with Zack Sabre Jr. and Tommaso Ciampa. How about you, Patrick?
There's no question on here. You're absolutely right. We do agree. Wow, we've agreed on 5 out of 6 over the last 2 weeks, or over the last 2 shows. Ciampa made it a worthwhile farewell for him because this was his farewell. And these two just absolutely tore the house down as only they could, and had one hell of a wrestling match. And that included Sabre kicking out Project Ciampa off the second rope. Ow. But they had an incredible match that was worthy of one man's farewell from a company. So, yeah, without a doubt, Zack Sabre Jr. and Tommaso Ciampa. So we now switch gears to our cash and our trash. Now, we're going to agree on this one. I know, because we kind of semi-mentioned it. So, real quick, what's your cash for this show?
Has to be the atmosphere, right?
Absolutely.
It has to be the fact that they packed almost 2,500 screaming fans into this building, and they were loud and rowdy for the entirety of this show. It's one thing to have 17,000 fans in the building like we've seen for pay-per-views, and then those fans proceed to sit on their damn hands for the better part of 3 hours. And it's like, what the hell did you spend your money for to come to the show here? These fans spent their money to come to this show and to have a good time and to not be a dick. Ask Jim Smallwood, he'll tell you. The atmosphere for this show is fantastic, and I get the hype. So, yeah, definitely atmosphere for sure.
Yeah, if there's one thing that British wrestling is known for, it's having an absolutely amazing atmosphere. Just like that other people in other countries, i.e. America, will actually complain about it because they don't get the singing and the chanting. Well, it's like if you've ever been to, a soccer match in England, being at a wrestling show is along the same lines. It's all the same. It's, being rowdy, having a good time, while still trying your best to not actually take away from what you're watching. A lot of people complain that it took away from the KCP with the fans constantly chanting and singing during the matches. Well, that's how it is then. And to me, it absolutely did. It made it much, much better. Because I would much prefer, as you mentioned, a crowd that's into the show and having a good time than a crowd that's sitting on the stand. It's why the night after, or the Monday Night Raw, that's the night after WrestleMania, is always held in such high regard because that's that crowd. That's why it's its own thing now. It's because that's the kind of crowd you have. That's the kind of crowd you want. You want a loud, boisterous crowd that's going to have a good time. So, yeah, absolutely, the atmosphere. Alrighty, what is your trash for this show? We may actually agree on this one, by the way, on the outside chance.
It has to be show length. 3.5 hours is an awfully long time for a show. Don't get me wrong. I get it. I do. And especially when one of the owners is your ring announcer and he's there to make sure that everything goes smoothly with everything like that. But at the same time, there's ways to shave time from this kind of stuff here. And one of the things that we've talked about is how long some of the entrances were. I'm almost curious to go back and rewatch this show and time the entrances, or just go back and rewatch the entrances and time them start to finish to see how much time could be saved off of the show's runtime if we actually just cut those out completely. Because I'm willing to bet this show comes in under 2.5 hours if we do it.
I mean, yeah, so actually, wow, 7 out of 8 over 2 episodes. That's weird for us. It took me until legitimately the second match to realize this. When all of a sudden I'm just watching the intros for the 6 women that are in the tag, and I'm like, when are we getting to the bell? I messaged you last night. I won't use the guy's name, but whenever I go to AAW, I usually stay over by the production area where the music and the video guys are. I've become friends with them. And I was standing by the music guy, and he hits play on a certain wrestler's music. I won't use the wrestler's name, but we're sitting there, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. Everyone was getting annoyed because he took 41 seconds to come out with his theme playing. And it was already annoying. Times that by 6. Or, hell, look at the 8-man sub-main event. How long did it take FSU to get into the ring so that the next guys could come out? Because they went almost the entire length of Party Hard by Andrew W.K. before they got into the ring. I love good long entrances if they're engaging. Like Shane Strickland coming out to Shaka Khan. He takes a while. But the crowd's singing along. They're into it. They're having fun. If you're just sitting there waiting to come out and waiting for a wrestler to come out, it's not fun. And it makes it too long. So for me, it's absolutely, and I'll even go more specifically to the entrances and how long they were. Because I would totally agree. Cut out all of the extra stuff that happened, all of the promos in between the matches, and you cut down the entrances, you can probably shave this down to a 3-hour show, and you may even be able to make it salvageable. So you're talking 48 minutes being cut off. Like you said, It was an hour and 58 minutes of wrestling on a 3-hour, 38-minute show. That's 3 hours, 38 minutes that we saw. So that doesn't include the injury period. So this was a 4-hour show. It gets to be too long.
No, and like if you want to leave in the entrances where the crowd is like popping around and singing along and stuff, I mean, the crowd was into the Party Hard entrance because they were kind of doing the dance there. Obviously, they were majorly into Jack Gallagher's entrance. And the other one that really stood out to me was the fact that they were singing along to C'est La Vie for Nixon Noel.
I was wondering how long it was going to take you to mention.
Which, frankly, is fantastic. But, like, if you want to show some interactions between the wrestlers and the crowd during their entrances, that's fine. I like how PWG does it. Like, they cut out entrances completely, but, like, they show highlight clips of the entrances inside of the little graphic for the matches. And I think that's a good way to do it because it saves time, but you still get the gist of what happened during the entrances.
Which is not much.
Usually not much. Now, if there's an exception, like somebody gets attacked during the entrance, then by all means show the entrance.
Yeah.
But if you can shave a half an hour plus off of your show by cutting out entrances and stuff, might be in your best interest. Let that be an experience for the live crowd, and let that be something that the fans watching on DVD have to go to the building to experience themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. So, wow, 3 out of 4 this week. That's a surprise. Alrighty, so before we get out of here, what is your final score? For Progress Wrestling Chapter 36, we're going to need a bigger room again.
I always feel like I have a hard time deciding final scores for shows. And the reason I say this is because I don't want to undervalue a show, but at the same time, I don't want to give out too high of a score and then set my bar too low for higher scoring. I think I've only given a 10 to one show that we've ever done here, and that was WrestleMania 17. And this doesn't come to the level of WrestleMania 17. That being said, and I think I sent you this by text when we were talking about the finish of the show, when we were getting to the close of the show, this felt like a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam episode or chapter of Progress Wrestling. You had the big matches in the moments. You had the big entrance. You had the big return of Jimmy Havoc in the main event. You had the incredible blow-away match between Tommaso Ciampa and Zack Sabre Jr., who I'm going to tell you guys right now is probably around 4.5 stars for my review and is going to be near the top of my review list.
Oh, totally agree.
To me, all things considered, top to bottom, the squash match with Paul Robinson knocks it down a little bit. The hit-and-miss quality of the women's match knocks it down a little bit, but not a lot in either instance because for Paul Robinson, they were covering for what happened with William Ever and Sebastian. For the women's match, they were getting ready to showcase the women's title tournament, the new version of the Natural Progress series that they were going to do. I'm going to give Progress Wrestling Chapter 36 an 8.5.
It's obviously high. Obviously, very high. This, to me, if we had done WrestleMania 17, I would hold it as probably the best show we've done. Despite, there are some drawbacks. So, one of those things where if your biggest complaint is the length of a show and nothing about the actual show's quality, that's saying something. When your only complaint is, well, to me it was too long. That's saying something. I really did have a hard time picking a worst match. And I just did it, the one that I picked was just because it didn't really hit the bar that I set. But I set the bar high. And that essentially happened with everything. Everything hit it. So when you have a show that good, and your only complaint is length, and the one actual bad match technically doesn't count because it was a last-second thing, you can't go low. This isn't a a 5 or a 6. This is upper echelon. I agree. This still doesn't touch WrestleMania 17. It's going to be damn hard to find any show ever that will come that close. Or I should say that will come to that level. But to me, this is still far and away upper echelon in terms of the 40 different reviews we've done. Technically 41, but that's notwithstanding. I'm actually going to go with a 9. It won't touch the 10 that WrestleMania 17 was, but it comes up there very well. And like I said, if our only major complaint is the length of it, that's a damn good show. So I'm actually going with a 9. And I will say that most of these matches will probably still print my personal top 25 whenever we get to, the written part of our review and we catch up on all that. We will eventually, I promise. But most of these matches are probably going to crack that.
The argument can certainly be made for a good portion of the matches, that is for sure.
Yeah. So that about wraps things up for us here on episode number 40 of Wrestling Unwrapped. Wow, I just completely blanked out for a second. And I'm tired. So, I will be back this time for next weekend's podcast, for next weekend's pay-per-view, WWE Love is a Battlefield, a.k.a. WWE Battleground. 2 weeks from today, I don't know yet. We haven't figured that one out yet, which is why we actually want to go to you, our fair listeners. Pitch up.
We're not. 2 things. I'm actually missing the next 2 weeks.
Oh.
Okay, you hear the reason why I'm missing next Sunday's show, and you're going to be mad at yourself for being disappointed in me. I will not be able to watch Love is a Battleground until I get home because I will be working Dropkick Diabetes 3.
I never said I was disappointed. I did forget that was next weekend, though.
As far as July 30th goes, I will be accompanying a friend and her son to a house show here in the city. So odds are, unless that house show's from 5 to 7:30, I'm probably out for the 30th as well.
That's a disappointment. I'm kidding.
But I will talk to Sean, and we are going to talk about possibly pre-recording a couple of episodes as well that might be able to air in our time slot for those particular days.
Well, there we go. Well, okay, Battleground we won't be able to, but so. And then all of August we already do have planned, but that will also fall under the one of the episodes might be preempted bill. As for all of August, we will go back to August of 1998 and cover the big 3 pay-per-views from that month, that being the Highway to Hell SummerSlam 98 from Madison Square Garden, ECW Heatwave 98 featuring Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome, and WCW Road Wild from the Black Hills in South Dakota during the Surges Bike Rally. And yes, I'm stalling because I don't want to mention the main event of of Eric Bischoff and Hollywood Hulk Hogan versus Diamond Dallas Page and Jay Leno. But no, folks, David Arquette killed WCW.
We'll still eventually get into doing that particular show. It just may end up happening a little bit later than originally anticipated because the weekend of August 13th I am going to be out of town. So we're going to try to pre-record that, and if not, we may have to post-record it.
I don't want to record it at all.
Well, that's unfortunate because you're the one who wanted to do this whole 3 pay-per-views in a month thing for August.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were, because I suggested March originally, and then you wanted to do the Highway to Hell SummerSlam, so don't try to blame this on me. You're guilty.
You pitched the WCW. I am not to blame on this.
Tonight's episode of Wrestling Unwrapped has been brought to you by the Madhouse Toy Chest. Stores.ebay.com/Madhouse Toy Chest. If you are a fan of anything wrestling-related, DVDs, action figures, VHS tapes, magazines, posters, and more, you can find it inside of the Madhouse Toy Chest. In addition, you can also find DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, board games, figures for non-wrestling-related shows and substances. Pretty much, if you think about it, Jason probably has it inside of the toy chest. But stores.ebay.com/Madhouse Toy Chest.
Does he have a figure for the 13th Doctor yet?
He has a Barbie. Does that count?
Ow!
I don't watch Doctor Who, so my opinion on this topic is irrelevant.
Ow! Be that as it may, we are once again a presentation of the W2M Network. For more information, including our previous episodes, including our own written reviews, sometime this week, PWG 3 Minutes will be up, and then we will be getting to work on WWF St. Valentine's Day Massacre from 1999. For all of that, be sure to check out W2Mnet.com, including sometime forthcoming also, I will be giving biographies on each and every competitor in the Mae Young Classic. I swear to God, if any of our listeners spoil me on the results, I will kill you. I mean it.
It is at this point that we would also like to announce that the tentative plan to cover the Mae Young Classic will be myself, Patrick, and Wrestling to the Max's Paul Leeser.
Yes, we will be unwrapping Mae Young Classic to the max.
The views and opinions of Patrick Ketza do not necessarily reflect those of the W2M Network or its associates.
Trust me, I regretted when I brought up that name. Anyway, so, until eventually.
I'm Harry Broadhurst.
And I'm Patrick Ketza. Thanks so much for joining us here on Wrestling Unwrapped as we have been doing Progress Wrestling, Chapter 36. We're going to need a bigger room. Again.
I'm going to need a bigger DVD space.
So am I.
Bye, everyone.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.